Go to TAPgiles.com to learn dreams, engage my services, and support the channel.
So if you want to make a lever or a button that activates when you're close by and you press press square, for example, to interact with it, let's start by having a puppet like that, and we'll make a button. This will just be pretty rough, and then we'll want to animate it down when we stand on it. So if I use a keyframe to move that down like that, that'll be our depressed level like that. Let's group it up. We'll probably want it bigger though, so that we can actually stand on it. So let's have a trigger zone. I'll just stick that there. And you want to know if the character is on top of it. So let's use a cylinder, because this is a circle. And use triangle on the dot, and that will put it straight in the center there. And just make it reach the top like that. So if we're in that zone, then we'll consider ourselves to be on the button. So while we're on the button, then we want to use detected to make the button go down like that. By default, this is on possessed controller sensors, so that will actually detect this whole object, the whole puppet, because the whole puppet will be possessed. So now if I go on here, now the button goes down while we're standing on it. We could make it have like a click sound maybe. So if we make it, give it a timeline, power the timeline instead, we can have it play once, which means it will start from the beginning and play all the way to the end and do whatever animations we have in there. So we could say, let's make this bigger. So it goes down quickly and then has like a slow fall off where it will move back up again. So if we look on the play head like that, so go click and then go back up again. And we will play a sound. So let's go to sound mode. Would it be in here? Aha. And we'll make that. I don't want that to be auto 3D panning. I will just want it to play. There we go. Cool. And you can actually have it so that while we're still on it, it won't play, it won't continue. So if we go here and make it pause by turning the playback speed to 0. So yeah, if we just test that and play, when it gets to there, it just pauses there. A problem you may notice though is when it gets to there, that goes really short, and then if we stop pausing, it could catch that and make it play again. So what I tend to do is have this not in there, and if this was in a chip it would be more tidy, but and then we can just, so this should be off, and then we turn it on with the keyframe in here, and then it will only activate right at the start and not accidentally in the middle. We want it to stay on in this fully upright position, or fully, this is actually pushing it down, so fully down position. So power that like that. So we want it to pause there if we're still on it. So we'll power that keyframe only while we're still on it. So now it stays on, and we can come off of it and it goes back up again. Cool, and then if we actually want it to do something, we can give it an output port node thing here. And even while we're outside of an object, if there's a node just hanging out there, then we can still see it and use it. So if we make this is an output, and this is, the button is down, then we can use that to do something else. So I'll just make, I'll make this object sort of flash a bit. that'll do. And that will power that animation. So while we're standing on this, the cube should flash. We haven't actually linked it up to anything yet, so wire that into the out port as well. And now it's flashing with the glow. Yay! And then we come off of it and it's not. If you wanted it to be like a permanent thing, you could have a selector, like if you stand on it and now forever that'll flash. You could have a selector and wire that into B. So a selector it's kind of like a mode selector. So starts on A mode and it has B mode and so on. So when we are detecting the player, we're going to B mode. And then B mode will play that instead. So that doesn't go into the timeline at all. And we don't need to get that keyframe. And we'll just have it stop right there. So it gets depressed and then just stays there forever. And because this is still powering the timeline, this will go, let's just expand that. This will go all the way to the end and just stay there. But the keyframe is kind of hanging off the end like that. So it will stay powered forever and keep this button down forever. And then we want to send a signal out from the port as well. So go on it and then go away, and now the block still keeps on flashing. You have another thing where instead of it being like a selector stays on forever type of thing, it stays on for a certain amount of time. So if I just undo some of that, actually, or yeah, we can just delete that. And we can just say, like, this is going to last 3 seconds, for example. And have it quickly go down and then slowly go up towards the end. And during that time, we want it to send a signal. So instead of going from here, we can use a switch in the timeline and say during that time, send a signal from the port. So now if I go on there, I can like run around and maybe this is like a platform appears, but then it stops working after 3 seconds. Or however long you do in the timeline. And you could have like that'll do. So I'll just stick that in there. And we don't need that or that. And we can just drag that to the right length and maybe like have it fall off a bit. And now it will play that and have the button still down and send a signal for 3 seconds. And there you go. A different kind of button could be you walk up to it and press square, for example, and that will activate it. So I'll copy this, but it'll work quite differently. So let's remove that thing there and have that wire into it instead. Yeah, we'll just leave it on the kind of timed one, but of course the same principles apply depending on how you want this to work. So instead of it being a trigger zone on the button, we want a trigger zone to just be around the button. So if we're close enough to the button, we're just standing nearby, then we're allowed to press square, and if we press square, then it will do the thing. So that's to detect if the player is close enough. But I think what we'll do is instead of detecting the whole player, we'll detect a tag in the player, which will make it it will make it more performant and also make it a bit easier to set up. So I have a tag. Called feet. It's at the player's feet, and then we'll detect the tag and use up and down on here to use the feet name. So now it's looking for the feet tag. And if we look at this while we run around and stuff, then if we go near that button, it's sending a signal out from here. So then we can use that to allow certain things. So maybe we want it to, I think probably in here, if we're in that zone, then we'll show a square button. Just in the, so that could be on the screen, or I think I'll put it in the scene like that. Like over the button. That tends to make it very easy to learn like what the interaction button is, because you always show the interaction button when the player can interact with it. And we'll turn the background off and stuff. Make it bigger. Okay. And we only want that to work while we're in the zone. So we'll power it while we're detecting the tag. Cool, so now it's showing the button, and we probably want it to kind of face the camera. So if we turn on face camera, then it won't ever be kind of looking the wrong way. It'll always face the camera. Cool, and now we don't want this to just start powering it immediately. We want to wait until we actually press the button. So what we'll do is we'll have a tag in here. We'll do it the other way around. So we have a tag in here, and it's waiting for a signal that we're trying to interact. And then in here we'll have a trigger zone, and we could have it zoned like that, but if we just put it scene wide, it should be a bit better for performance. And look for a tag that is called interact, and then only power that while we press square. So square into the interaction thing. So we only care about if we're trying to interact if we're actually standing next to this one. So we should power that like that, and now it cares about it. And if that sends a signal, then that means we press the button. So then we'll power the timeline, and that will do the timed thingy. So let's go over here now. And nothing happens until we press square. And now it does the timed activation. What if we have more than one of these right next to each other? So if I have more than one of these and more than one of these, I'll have that in there, and these were quite close to each other, for example, then we could be in both of them at the same time, like here, and then when I press square, they both get activated. So that may not be what you want to happen, so we'll kind of fix that as well. So I'll just change the logic in here and then copy it across again. So we also want to know if it's the closest one to the player, and that's actually quite easy with a trick with a follower. While we're activated, then first we want to know if we're the closest button thing that we can use. So if we're in the zone, then we want to know if we're the closest. So we'll give this new tag a name of closest. Yeah, so let's get a follower. And we'll lower the range because it doesn't need to be so big. So what a follower generally does is drag an object towards a tag. So if we have, this is just for testing, and then we give this the same name, then it will drag the player towards that tag because that's the closest tag. If there's another tag that's further away but still in the zone, so just make sure of that, then it will go towards the closer of the two. And you can see that if we look at both of these, so this is the one on the right, this is the one on the left, it sends a signal out just from the one it's actually going to. So it's as if it's like a special trigger zone that only activates the closest tag. So we can make that aim at that closest tag over there. Closest. And if we just put these down to 0, then it won't actually move the player, it will just do the closest tag thingy. And you can make that a bit bigger, I suppose, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so are we in the zone? Are we the closest of these? And we'll make sure that tag gizmo is actually on the button. So is this the closest gizmo to the player? And then if so, then we're allowed to interact. And if we interact, we'll play the animation. And during the animation, we'll send that signal. So we want to only show that while we're the closest one as well. So we'll move it over there. So if we're the closest, we'll show that that square button prompt. Let's try that. Cool, so now only one of them is working, and it's the closest one to the player. You could do something like, so if we're facing left, but the one behind us is activating until we're closer to the one in front of us. So if you adjust that to be in front a little bit, then ones that are in front will have a little bit of an advantage. And even though we're technically closer to the one behind, it's preferring the one in front. That kind of thing. So that's up to you how you do that, if you want that to happen or not. But yeah, so now we can have all these things. And that will power that one. But only when you press square. And then press square on the other one. Yeah. And job done.
Thanks for watching. I hope you learned something interesting. Go to patreon.com/TAPgiles to learn something new every day.